going on? It's your girl, Miss Fab, and you are now tuned into GTALK, and we are sitting with Esther BRUNAT.
Hi.
Esther, please share with us, who are you?
That's a terrible question. Right? Because everybody answers that question with like what they do. Like, you know what I mean?
Gotta switch it up. You gotta be.
I don't want to be defined by what I do.
Who are you? Not what you do.
I'm Esther. I'm the daughter of Haitian immigrants.
Okay.
That's important.
That is very important.
I like to laugh. I like to make people laugh. I'm loud, I'm obnoxious, but I like to have a good time. Love me some Jesus. Like to be around the globe.
I was waiting on that.
Like my friend Fab here, like jet setters for life.
Right. She just got back from Alaska, guys, but we're not gonna talk about that.
She's a little salty. I tell people to keep coming with me, but whatever. It's okay.
Okay. Yes.
So that's a little bit of who I am, I think.
Okay, so Esther, let me just help you out a little bit. So Esther is a phenomenal young adult teacher, friend, sister, mentor, counselor. I mean, you name it, and that's probably Esther. So she was really downplaying the situation
really
right
nice.
now. But she's all of that plus more. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna spice it up too much because the head might get a little bigger. But
it's already pretty big. Yeah, the other day I went to go racing at the Extreme Action whatever, and they couldn't find a helmet big enough for me. They had to go get me a special helmet.
I think that happens to me.
It was so bad, and it smelled like sweat. But it was so bad. Anyway, I survived.
All right, so I connect with you on that, but I wasn't gonna tell anybody. But since you brought it up, we just got extra large heads. It's okay. So speaking of large heads, big brains, what you actually use your brain to do is teach. So I definitely wanted to tap into you as an educator, and more importantly, you as a Christian educator. So that's a big piece. You love Jesus, and I'm sure you, of course, have to be a reflection of him, no matter what it is that you're doing, what occupation you do. But it can get a little sketchy because the school board and all these regulations and all kinds of stuff that people try to put, or restrictions on religion and all that stuff like that. So how do you find that balance of being a Christian educator, still being a representation of Christ, but at the same time not going overboard into trying to,
So I trust that, like, I'm Christian enough, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I used to beat myself up a lot with, am I projecting Jesus? Am I, whatever. But I believe firmly that I love Jesus a lot, right? So that's gonna ooze out no matter what. So if I feel sensitive to a moment that I'm having with a kid, and I, need to bring up God explicitly, I don't have a problem with doing that because I have such good relationships with my kids that none of them are gonna get me fired. Right. So I don't feel bad about doing that if I need to. But I know that, I'm not saying, like, I don't walk in preaching, so, but yeah, it's an important part for me, and I just kind of let my actions speak for myself, because a lot of times kids don't really have somebody in their life who just wants to listen to them or like is relating to them. So I think that's my strength, and that's what opens doors for me, I would say.
That's good. And I think the key piece to that is building a rapport with the kids, because you could want to try to console a student, and you want to mention Christ, and they're like, wait a minute, I'm telling my mama, and then like, because they don't know you like that and you don't know them like that, so building that rapport is very important. So that's good. So speaking of, what inspired you to even want to teach?
I think I thought about it when I was a little bit younger, and I was like, well, they don't make no money, so and I don't make money. And when I got to college, I was a business major, and then I failed accounting. So then after I failed accounting, I was like, well, what are you gonna do with your life? And I knew that I had liked kids because I was really active in our youth group at this point. I was in college, so I was like a junior leader or whatever at our youth group. And I knew I just liked that age range because I had done camps, I had done, you know, fine arts, all that kind of stuff with youth. So I was like, I could do that for the rest of my life because I'm sure enough not sitting in an office. Because and so once I decided that, when I started looking into education programs, the college that I went to, which was Broward College, whoop whoop, all 4 years debt free. What's up?
That's what it's about, y'all.
And they had just gotten an education program. I was fully funded going there. It didn't make any sense for me to go transfer schools to go figure out how I was going to pay the rest of that tuition or whatever. So, and then, so they had gotten math degrees, science degrees, and special education degrees. And I was pretty good at math in high school. Got all A's and B's. So I was like, you could probably do that, even though I had just failed accounting.
Right. Accounting is a whole nother beast in itself. It's not regular.
I would completely agree. Some people my friends, somebody's sister who shall remain nameless, was like, you're dumb. Like, why would you do that? You just failed accounting. And I was like, no. But I only have 2 gears, right? I'm either all the way on or all the way off. Those are like my 2 gears, right? So once I'm like, I'm gonna become a math teacher, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not gonna stop me.
Right.
So
Nobody's saying
I
nothing.
might have taken pre-calculus twice, so I was gonna finish what I had started. So
and that's what it's about, finishing, starting. We're
Yeah.
gonna get a lot of inspirational quotes and sayings and statements throughout this whole
nothing that I didn't steal from the internet.
GR8NESS ENT, a licensed company, does not approve theory on the internet or otherwise.
Alright, so that's kind of what inspired you. I mean, just having a business didn't work, so let me try teaching.
Yeah, but I was
kids.
right because I knew I had liked them, and that's what keeps me sane for sure.
Right. Okay.
Connecting with the kids.
Okay, so now, how long have you been teaching, by the way?
I just finished year 6.
Year 6. Wow, and you're still doing it.
I
Congratulations.
am still doing it. They say after year 3 is when people usually quit, if they're gonna quit.
Yeah, 6. Okay. All right. So, what has been the biggest highlight thus far, as a teacher, educator, whatever you want to call it? And let's talk about in the States, and then we'll talk about
Okay, because I was
other
gonna.
places.
Okay, so in the States, relationships that I get to build with my kids would be the overarching, all over the board. So in the States, it's challenged the way that I've done things without dipping into before the States. So, I mean, right now, what I love the most is like the crazy things they say.
Right.
Like, there's something, I don't know what it is, what I project into a classroom that makes kids feel like they could just ask me crazy things or say crazy things, but maybe because they feel comfortable with me, but they just come out of the woodwork with some stuff, and it makes me laugh. Like, in the moment, it's funny in the moment, but I don't like crack up laughing. But when I replay it in my head, I'm like, you just called me stuck up. Like, not only did you just call me stuck up, but you said that's the reason I don't have a boyfriend.
Oh,
like,
no.
What?
No.
Like, these are real life things that are said to me.
And you want to be a representation of Christ. So your response is usually,
you know who's about to be stuck? It does not come out pretty, like, oh, I love you, sweetheart. No, like, I'm gonna give her back what she gave me.
so you go toe to toe with the students,
Oh,
but it's all love.
Easy, yes.
That's
yes.
the great thing. Yeah. Okay. So let's rewind a little bit. So your first introduction to teaching was where?
Like my first job?
Your first job.
Okay, so right out of college, I couldn't find a job at the school that I wanted in the States. And so that's why I went into looking at other jobs, and a friend of mine, our pastor's son, actually was like, you should look into overseas teaching. So I did look at Christian schools overseas and put my resume up on a website called missionteach.com. And there are so many schools overseas that are always looking for teachers, especially Christian schools like that. And yeah, I probably had like 4 job offers, like without even knowing who I was. They're like, yeah, we'll fly you, you know, whatever.
What?
Anyway, so the one that I ended up picking was Panama. And because they were just like, we'll fly you out here, we'll take care of your house, all this kind of stuff. I didn't have to raise any funding to go because some of those schools require you to raise funding. Mm-hmm. And I got on a plane 30 days after accepting a job and just packed up most of what I had into 2 suitcases and moved.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Was it easy?
No, but okay. Yes. I mean, nothing's moving easy. I mean, transitions are transitions. So obviously I didn't know anybody. I've never been to Panama.
Right.
and like I said, I only have 2 gears. I'm totally on and totally off. Like part of that is that like my confidence is like on an 11, like not on a 10, like on an 11. So my boss is like, can you teach pre-calculus? Of course I can teach pre-calculus. I studied every day that first year of teaching. Every day. That first semester, I was like, yeah, I did it in college twice. So naturally, I should be able to communicate this, and I mean, it worked out. But that was my first job overseas in Panama City, Panama, and working at a tiny Christian school, but it was an American school, so all my kids spoke English, so I spoke English. I should know more. I should know more Spanish, but I don't.
It's okay.
I can survive though. And so yeah.
That's good. So you said something. So your confidence. Let's touch on that a little bit because I think that's key, especially as a Christian. Like what created that confidence, that level of confidence? Because a lot of people, young adults especially, they battle with identity, they battle with confidence, they battle with like just being able to accept their gifts and talents and going for it, or you know, just being on when it's supposed to be on or being off.
Right.
And, you know, understanding. So what caused you to have that level of confidence, and when did that start? Like, tell me all about that, because yeah,
I think there's probably a bunch of things.
Out the womb.
Yeah.
Just came out laughing.
Yes. My parents, I mean, every parent have their flaws, but I was fine. Like they were like, yeah, you're getting good grades. You're, you know, whatever. You're cute. I got a lot of, you know, I think a lot of it for a girl, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody will come for me after this. I don't know. But like, I have a great relationship with my father. Like, so I don't have like some complexes and stuff like that. And I would call myself a daddy's girl. And I think a lot of that helped. So I was always like, yeah, I got this. You know, so and anything, I grew up with 2 brothers. I think that's a lot of it too. Like, so I had to hold my own, like with them at the same time, being the only girl. So that helps with confidence also. And wherever I knew somebody was gonna have my back too. So I think a lot of that, I've always been very secure in who I am. Like I find it very hard to like not be Esther. So yeah, I just kind of like take that with me wherever I go, and then I'm okay with failure too.
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah, so that makes it also okay. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go into this, and you know what, Esther? If it sucks, you're gonna get some help. You know, I think I trust in my ability to find help. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah,
like
a lot of young adults, they don't like to ask, or they don't like to bother people. They don't like to feel like they can't handle it, and then when they fail, they crawl into a little hole or a box. And that's not what we're trying to push, especially as Christians, right? So that bold confidence, I think that's awesome. Did your faith, tell me a little bit about how your faith played a part in you dropping everything, packing your whole little 2 suitcases and
they
going,
wasn't little.
2 big suitcases and going to Panama to teach something that you knew that was not your strong suit.
Right. I fought it for a little bit. This process was very quick. It was over a summer, right? So I think in June was when I first heard back. but then I was going to like go be a camp counselor or something like that. So I was in the wilderness, you know, whatever. You get kind of cell phone service out there, but and I'm getting emails and I'm getting, you know, text messages and voicemails and stuff like that. And I was like, I can deal with that later. Like when I don't want to deal with something, I'm the procrastinator. I'm like, I'm not ready. Like, let's let this week pass. So then, you know, I get home and I'm really, you know, these people want to talk to me, and I tell my mom. So me and my mom sat at a mechanic for like 4 hours, and I step outside to go take this phone call, which was my first interview. It sounded good, you know, like there was nothing I wasn't hesitant. Right. So I told my Haitian mother who did not let me sleep over nobody's house till I was 16 years old, right? Like, she's about to shut this down. She's like, you know, Esther, you're a grown up.
Oh.
Now I'm a grown up. 22, now I'm old. So I took that as a green light. I was like, yo, my mom just said I could go, right? So I proceeded, and I had like maybe 1 or 2 more interviews, and we went to Haiti. No, it was before we went to Haiti. We had like some kind of night service at church, and I was like, we're not talking about this right now, God. Like this is literally like, we're not, but sometimes when you don't want to talk about something, that's when it's like, no. So I'm in the back pew, and I almost like never sit in the back, right? And the Lord was just like, you need to deal with this right now. Like, when I tell you to go somewhere, you need to go. And that's what made me, like, sitting there, like, facing that decision and facing, like, wanting to be obedient. I was just like, well, I came to all of the conclusions that I could come to. This could be awesome. This could be terrible. Either way, God's making you do it.
Right.
You know what I
It's
mean?
part of the process.
So I was like, okay, maybe this is a desert season, Esther. You know, look at the Israelites. They still came out, okay, or maybe this is Canaan. I don't know, you know? So I think those are the things I just trusted I was just really trying to trust the process. It was probably the biggest thing that I had trusted God with up until that point. It was well worth it.
Okay, so how long were you in Panama?
3 years.
3 years. And did you want to come back?
Tough decision, right? Like, I was there for 2 years. I upped my contract for 1 more.
Okay.
And I had hit my sweet spot, right? Like, all my giftings were firing on all 6 cylinders. I had built really great relationships, but really felt this tug. And I can remember it clear as day because I was training for a half marathon and I was getting ready to go for a run, right? And I was like finishing listening to a sermon, and I was not doing no kind of prayer, but I just felt like the Lord dropped it straight into my spirit, and he was like, it's next year's your last year. And I remember asking God, like maybe the first year or the second year, because it was a very transient community, right? People were always coming in and out. And somebody said to me, because it was their last year, my first year, and they were like, we just always prayed that when it was our time to go, that the Lord would help us be prepared for it and to prepare the hearts of everybody else.
Right.
So I prayed that prayer. I was like, Lord, help me prepare well for that. So when he told me a year earlier than I thought, or a year before the last day was going to be, it gave me that time to prepare. That's one of the reasons why I knew, because he had spoke to me a long time ago. But it was, I mean, there are very few moments where it's been that clear to me. And I was just, I ran outside, like, I was going running anyway, but like, but now I'm mad, right? Like, now I'm running, I'm like, we're not talking about this. This is not, you know, whatever, because I had hit my sweet spot. Like, this school had never been on any missions trips. I was the first one to execute a mission trips, and we had already had another one planned. I mean, that's why I tell you, if you want to go to Panama, I got you. Like, I've got, you know, like,
covered.
the parents there. I'm going to a wedding this summer of one of my students in Chicago. Yeah, and next year his younger sister's getting married. She already asked me to say a scripture at her wedding. Like, these are the kinds of relationships that I had gotten to build over there. So it was very hard to go. But I would say, so that's one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin, like, home is where all my family is, right? And like, one of my cousins graduated, and she was in California, you know. Everybody, not everybody went over, but a bunch of people went over, got an Airbnb, did this whole thing. And you, like, if you know my family like that, yo, we love each other and we're real close, and missing stuff like that's kind of tough at the same time. And then more so than that is my parents had gotten a divorce probably like a year and a half, 2 years before I moved to Panama. So my mother was just living with my grandmother. I knew the divorce was already taking a toll on her. And there was just something tugging me, being like, it's like, you gotta go home for her. But I couldn't really put my finger on what that was or how that was gonna work or what that meant really. So come to find out, when I did move back home, because it was my mom and my grandma. My grandma's like 92 or something like that. She was probably like 80 something at the time. And she was just, it was getting too much for my mother to just do on her own, you know. And she has like 4 siblings that live in Massachusetts. It's easier if she goes over there and there's 4 siblings to balance everything. So then my mother was going to be alone. And she's one of 8. She's the second oldest. She's never been alone. When she moved out, she got married and had kids. So this is all stuff that I did not know until I moved back home. So that's a big part of, like, God told me to do something, I don't understand what I'm doing, why he's asking me to do this, but in retrospect, sometimes he gives you a little bit more, like, okay, it makes sense now. Yeah.
Okay, so one more question about Panama. So what was your most memorable moment in Panama? 3 years, you knew it was coming to an end, you made the best of it, you was hitting your sweet spot. I'm sure you have tons of memories and moments, but can you give us like one, like, most memorable?
I'm giving you 2. Okay, so one is our first mission trips that we had gone on. We went to Volcan. So Volcan is like 8 hours out of the city, right? In a mountain village, not a village, but like in the mountains. There's some poor areas, there's some touristy areas, kind of like anywhere. We had hooked up with Operation Mobilization, OM, and they had like a food kitchen out there and a church and some kids that they kind of fed and helped out. And so we did some like Vacation Bible School stuff with them. And I remember being so pumped about this mission trip. I was like, we're gonna get 25 kids to go. I got 8. I got 8, and I was like, wait a second. But when it all, again, in retrospect, right? The house that we stayed at, perfect amount of beds, boy girl split up and everything, right? We had set like an $800 goal or something like that, and we were like not getting any money. We were like a little bit worried, and then somebody posted it, reposted the GoFundMe, and in hours, right? Like I came home on a Wednesday. It was a field day. I remember it. It was a Wednesday. It was a half day. We just did field day, so I'm exhausted. I'm house sitting with one of the kids, so she's upstairs taking a nap. I'm downstairs taking a nap. I wake up from my nap and we're fully funded. Wow. And I was just like, what? I was getting text messages, go check your email, And then on top of it, up until the day that we left, that was probably like a week before we left, up until that day, people just kept handing me money. They were just like, oh, here's another $50, buy the kids some cookies. Like, here's another. And we got to bless the church when we were done. We got to make them soccer goals. I got to see these 8 kids in a light that I have never seen kids. I mean, their giftings come out, like seeing the leadership ability. And that, for me, the best part of life, period, is getting to be a part of somebody else's win.
Yeah.
So watching them execute finances and administration stuff and playing piano and, you know, playing with the kids, building stuff, was giving me all the life. But number 2 is my 3rd year. I got to watch my original homeroom class graduate, and they asked me to be their keynote speaker.
Oh.
I still have, sometimes when I'm like having a bad day, I still listen to the speech.
Okay, speaking of
bad
days.
Yes.
Because everything, you know, has a good, has a
yeah, it's true.
So, what has been the biggest struggle as a teacher overall?
They vary. Sometimes, like in the beginning, taking things personal. Like sometimes a kid will do something and I'm like, why did I took it so personal, like I'm awesome, why would you treat me this way? That kid wasn't coming for me. They were probably going through something else, or they just, you know, so that's really tough. My most recent bad days as teaching is feeling overlooked by my administration, I think. So I would like to be teaching like some higher level classes or whatever, because again, my confidence, now I know I can do it, right? So, what's up? You know, why am I still teaching Algebra 1? Right. Yeah. You know, so that's been a little bit tough for me lately, is like, okay, it's been 3 years at the same school, like it would be nice if I could move up the food chain a little bit.
Okay. Speaking on that as well, do you feel like the struggles differ as being like Christian versus not being Christian?
As a teacher?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think yes. I think yes, on the sense that we all struggle with, are we doing a good enough job? We all struggle with, am I giving the kids enough? Am I doing enough for them? Like, people talk about mom guilt, like teacher guilt and mom guilt are very similar. Like, you never feel like there's always something I could be doing. Like, right now I could be lesson planning. Am I? No. You know, but there's always something. So I feel like in those struggles, you know, how do you reach that one kid in the back who's not giving you the time of day? Always going to be similar. In terms of relationship, I feel like I think relationships are important to everybody. But I think there's a confidence in knowing, like, I don't need to be their savior. So I think that might be the difference, as opposed to maybe if somebody isn't rooted in Christ, right? They're like, I gotta save all the children, I gotta be their God, I gotta, you know, and struggle with that, as opposed to as a Christian, I can be like, you know, I did in the physical right now, in this, I did not win that battle. And that is okay, because somebody else has.
That's good. So everything that you say, it just ties into my next question.
This is so good.
So speaking of, you know, those individuals who feel like they got to be like kids' gods, and they want to feel like they have to control whatever the case is, what do you think, because you work with them every day, are the influences now for kids? Like, who are they following? Who are they like really into? Is it Jesus? Is it more like the rappers and the celebrities? Like
it's
what's your take?
Famous people.
Internet famous people.
Yes, that is the biggest thing that I get in the classroom is, Brunat, why do we have to learn math? Just be a YouTuber. Okay. You know, like, that is, we get that a lot.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yes.
I do still get the occasional Jay-Z. You know, look at Jay-Z, he dropped out of school, he doing all right. Jay-Z also has a business mind.
Very true.
So
shout out to Jay.
Yeah, you know, like, and he's making his money work for him, you know. So I think, yeah, I get and Kodak Black.
So speaking of, like, so you're in the classroom with them, so your influence obviously has an impact, whether you think so or not, or whether they think so or not.
Right.
There is some type of impact, whether they feel it now or they feel it later. They're gonna remember.
Right.
Everybody remembers Esther. So with those influences, do you feel like they're more positive or more negative? And what do you do? Like, what separates your influence versus the influences that they see online, if it's negative or positive? How do you try to combat that?
I think there is there's for sure some negative influences online.
You see it in the students? How it's influencing them?
Well, in their attitude towards school, yes. Like, in their drive to want to be successful and get a degree and stuff like that, for sure. They are like, no, I'm gonna make it.
Right.
You know?
Everybody want to be rappers.
Yeah, so
ain't nothing wrong with that, but
yeah, I completely agree, you know. And I want to also support their creative side.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
But what's the content?
Yeah.
Do you support it no matter what the content is? As a Christian teacher?
Okay, the only kid that I know who's successfully like doing something or whatever, I'm not gonna say his name because he's always trying to get me to at him on Instagram.
You gotta become Insta famous.
But this kid has a legit side hustle, right? I don't know if anybody, have you ever heard of this brand called Supreme? It's a clothing brand.
Okay.
But they're like, this company, Supreme, I don't know what you're doing or who your marketers are, but you're genius, right? They release everything. They have release dates, right? Like, and people line up for these things, like Jordans. I'm not kidding. I had no idea, but it's a niche of people, right?
Supreme.
So they know their audience, and these people are connected to them. This kid, I usually have him at the end of the day, right? But I guess when Supreme drops their clothes, it's like at noon or something on a Thursday or something like that. And so one time we had an early release day, so he's in my class at noon, and he's like this.
Kitchen.
Put your phone away. And he's like, like, I've never seen him like this. Usually if I say put your phone away, he's like, okay, I'll put it away. He's like, can I go to the bathroom? I'm like, sure, take your phone with you, right? Like, so he goes. So later he's like explaining to me that like he goes in, he buys the stuff, and then he resells them. He's like, you can look at my PayPal account, because he's got like an iPhone 10 and he's got all these things, and his friends are like,
wow.
It's such and such, his parents are rich or whatever. And I'm like, so where are you getting all this money from? So he started to explain it to me. He was like, yeah, I have a little hustle or whatever, you know. So I want to support that. Like, I want to support the entrepreneur. I want to support the creative thing. I don't want to support you not doing work in class, though, or not having work ethic, right? Because all those things come with work ethic. Like, you can't get... Jay-Z didn't become Jay-Z by sitting on his butt. Like, you know? Like, he was hustling and he was putting in work. And sometimes that's stuff that you don't want to do. So I would say negative impacts on it is the kid who thinks they're just going to make it just to make it. But the positive impacts are the creative juices, the entrepreneurial spirit coming out or whatever. So.
All right, so you did touch on this. Social media famous. How does that tie into Esther Brunat right now? Talk about what's next for you. What are some of the projects that you're doing on the side, outside of the classroom, or even in the classroom? Because I believe some of your stuff is in the classroom. And tell us how that is going, or what do you see happening with that? What is the platform that you're trying to create for you?
Okay, so about last year, I launched ESTHERBRUNAT.com, which there's nothing on there. You don't need to go there.
There will be.
There will be. I just knew that anything that was gonna launch in 2018, like, you needed to have a space on the internet to like put it there, right? So through this, some mentoring or whatever, I started getting really into Instagram, and I started telling stories, and that's the original story that I always tell people. That one time a kid asked me, Ms. Brunat, do you have a boyfriend? And I said, no, I don't. And they said, it's probably because you're stuck up. That was the original story. And like, people like were like, oh my gosh, that was so funny, da, da, da. And I was like, well, the kids say funny stuff all the time. Like, and I know it's just not just my kids either. So I started telling stories of what, you know, originally I thought, oh, I'll just share my curriculum. And,
Right.
and this will be awesome and whatever. I was not good at that. Like, that's not my life.
Right.
So, I can tell a story though.
Yes,
you know,
your
and
stories have gotten a lot of attention.
They have. So, I'm at 6,500 right now.
6,500 views, followers, whatever you call that
so
stuff.
there's people who come and they're, whatever, they're there and they're excited and I love making, people laugh. You know, people tell me, I look forward to your stories at the end of a long day. Like, I wasn't expecting that. You know what I mean? I was just expecting it to be all right, like whatever, you know. But people are, you know, it's doing something for people,
and it's positive.
Yeah, and it's positive.
Yes.
I never, you know, talk bad about my students and just repeat silly things that they say because I love them and I tell them that even though they get on my nerves.
And what are you hoping for this to grow into?
I'm hoping to make a sustainable, like, life as a teacher, or a life in general, I should say. Through some other things I could explain at another time. I really want to, like, when I have my own kids, I really want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I want to be all up in their business. Like, I want to be at every game. I want to be at every play. Like, and I don't want my boss telling me that I don't have the time. So knowing this now, I'm like, I got to find a way to do that, and I'm not getting a master's degree unless there's a university out there that wants to pay me.
Right.
Then I'm not doing it to get into debt, because I'm not into debt. We talked about that.
Right.
So that's important to me. So I decided I was gonna find a way, you know. So while I'm on Instagram, I'm trying to build a business. So I do that by, you know, doing teacher products. I do that. I have some teas that we do, affiliate marketing, you know, with different companies where I'm trying to step into that realm or whatever, with that purpose, is that when Bay does come along, wherever you are, we're ready to have children, that I don't need to be worried about finances, or I don't have to make the decision between wanting to be with them and having to go to work. I want the freedom to say, we're not going to have to do this.
Yes. So, and that's great. So the thing about this is, you know, definitely creating other streams of income, guys. Doing positive things that can impact the world in a positive way. Esther, we thank you so much for being on GTALK today. We had so much fun.
I did. Fab and I are like real life friends. I just need to say, so we always have this much fun. We actually toned it down for you guys.
We did. You definitely have to come back, of course, because once you blow up,
oh gosh,
you know, we want to bring you back on so you can tell the people what's really going on with this. Where can they find you, follow you? What's your
everything? Esther BRUNAT. You can find me at EsTherBrunat.com. You can find me on Facebook at Esther BRUNAT. You can find me on Twitter at Esther BRUNAT. You can find me on Instagram.
That's real fast. But just pause the video, play it real slow, slow it down. Esther BRUNAT.
Yes.
Okay, on all social media platforms. And that's it. So you are now finished watching GTALK, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.